Hello and welcome to the Sacred Sex for Real Women podcast. For woo-woo women in long-term love who crave wow sex, deep connection, and radiant confidence. This podcast offers simple, soulful tools to bring sacred sex and feminine embodiment into your real life, so you can feel turned on in your body, your marriage, and your day-to-day without needing to escape to a women's retreat. And I'm your host, Janine McKinnon, sacred sexuality coach and sex magic expert. And today we are switching it up a little bit from what I would call our regular programming. And I am sharing about my HPV and cervical dysplasia journey. You can consider this as part one of this journey. It's something that's been going on for me for quite a few years. I've been keeping my cards close as I move through and process the different stages of what I've been going through. But I really want to bring this video, this podcast, out for other women who are dealing with this too. Because as I have been collecting up so much research, I have really looked to content like this to help me see what other women have been experiencing and different things that have worked for them. So that is why I'm switching things up a little bit and sharing about my journey. So what you can expect is really a background. When I first learned I had HPV, through the years, as well as more recently, what I would say, I believe is the last 3 years, where this really has become more of a concern. The last 6 months or so, where I have really buckled down on dealing this and what I'm doing, what has helped me, my experiences with a range of different medical professionals, and where I am now. So as I said, this will be more of a part one. Part two will come after I get cleared and have an amazing clear PAP and have fully healed this in my body. There may be something else that pops up in between now and then that I may do another part for it, but the time is now. I feel ready to share this. And so let's just get into things. For me, this all started when I was actually quite a bit younger. I've been on top of getting my PAP tests and my screening done since I was 16. My mom was very adamant about that, kind of brought me to my first one, and I continued to do them yearly from there until they changed the rules and made it every 3 years. Now, somewhere along the way, I'm going to take a stab in the dark and say probably around 2012-ish, my early 20s, a PAP test came back as abnormal. Now, I can't remember for sure if she said I tested positive for HPV at the time or if it was just an abnormal PAP. But she told me not to worry too much about it, and so I didn't. I honestly am quite thankful that I didn't think too much about it. I didn't carry as much of the stigma and shame as a lot of women can when it comes to HPV, because for me, this is something that I've known many other women who have gone through. My roommate at the time was actually going through something similar, and I knew she had to go and have a LEEP procedure done. And it wasn't super in-depth, the conversations we had about it, but I knew that that was going on. I also knew that my mom had had at least one, if not more, LEEP procedures done. And she did actually end up having cysts on her ovaries, I believe, potentially her uterus, and have to have a partial hysterectomy done. So it was always kind of on my radar, and I just considered it something that most women deal with. So life carried on. Fast forward at 2019, after I had my daughter, my second child, I had a PAP test done. At first, we tried at the 6-week postpartum mark. It was too soon, and so I came back, I believe, 2 weeks later. Thankfully, I had an amazing midwife who helped me through that process, and it came back clear. And I believe that was my last clear PAP test. Now, fast forward, I had a few other odd health things come up that I am going to include in this because I feel like it is related. And I guess this is a good time for me to say, in no way is this medical advice at all. I am simply sharing about my experience and my beliefs, and I highly recommend you talk to your own medical professionals to figure out the best plan of action for you. So, little disclaimer is out there. And so for me, the couple other things that had popped up is I've also had these random cysts pop up in my body. It started with one, I can't remember which arm it is. Here it is in my forearm, a little cyst. And my doctor just kind of passed it off, saying many people have cysts. You could just randomly choose a person around you and there's a high chance they would have cysts and not to worry about it. And I've had a few of these pop up, just these little bumps. And I had one in my breast. So that was a little bit unnerving going through the testing process for that. But thankfully, it was shown as benign. And so part of me weaving this into this conversation is I feel like lymphatic drainage is a big thing for me. Now, I had another pap test done in 2023. So after figuring out this breast cyst thing, and I went to the Island Sexual Health Clinic where I live here on Vancouver Island in BC, Canada. And because of me and what I do, I was actually really interested in learning more and seeing all the things when I was having my pap test done. And she was so eager to help me, which was amazing. It was a really good experience for what it was. And so because this is a clinic that is specifically geared towards women's sexual health, they have a lot better equipment for it compared to many different doctors' offices. And that included a camera. And so I was actually able to see my cervix, which was really cool for me because the cervix is kind of this like unknown spot inside of us that many women have a very big disconnection to. Now, I did have somewhat of a connection to my cervix. I used menstrual cups at the time and had begun my sacred sexuality exploration, and so beginning to tap into some of the pleasure of my cervix, although it was quite numb at the time, but I still knew where it was located and what it felt like, which many women don't. So I highly recommend you explore your body. I do have different offerings for that. If you're interested, just reach out and I can help you with a guided audio. But at that pap test, looking at the camera, I was able to see that there's something that looked like kind of bloody-ish, some sort of discharge that wasn't just vaginal discharge around my cervix. And so that was interesting to see. The lady was really great at not putting too much into it. But that pap did end up coming up as abnormal. And so that's what really started this new chapter of this journey for me. Now, before I go on, I do want to add a couple of things for this beginning chapter. And that is to say that I'm someone who has a lot of those high risk factors that I had no idea about. Some of those including losing your virginity at a young age. I was 16 when I lost my virginity. Having multiple sexual partners, as I've shared here and online. I was a promiscuous party girl, so it was high risk for that. I did used to smoke cigarettes. I had started when I was a teenager, and I had always said, by the time I'm 19, 20, I don't want to still smoke. So by the time I was around 19, 20, I decided to quit. And so I quit. But I did have smoking, and also what I personally believe it plays a huge role in this is I was on birth control for 11 or 12 years plus an additional, so I stopped taking birth control right before I got pregnant with my son. I got pregnant with my first son within, I think, 2 months of stopping birth control, not necessarily intending to get pregnant, although very happy with having my son here, but it was because I didn't want to have those hormones and birth control in my body anymore, especially after having taken it for over a decade. Now, with a little bit of a pregnancy scare, after having my second child, I ended up taking the mini pill until my husband had a vasectomy. I really did not want to take it, but we also feel complete with having 2 kids within our family. So that was a decision I made up until he had his vasectomy. And so I had that 12 years previously of birth control use, as well as maybe a 1.5-ish of mini pill use. And in the research I've done, there is a huge correlation between the mineral deficiencies that show up in women's body who have been on birth control for a long time with the mineral deficiencies that are very common within women who have HPV. So I personally believe that taking birth control for such a long time played a huge role in this, and I'm personally quite upset that at the time I was not told any of this information. Now, I don't know if it was out there at the time when I was 16 starting birth control, but I was just told, like, hey, you'll be safe in terms of getting pregnant. No side effects you really need to worry about. If there is, we'll just put you onto something else and find the right thing for you, and it's all good. And again, I didn't think much of it. That's not my mentality at the time. I was partying, numbing out, doing my thing, and didn't want to get pregnant. Okay, circling back now. After I had my abnormal PAP in the beginning of 2023, I went forward with a colposcopy. So this was my first colposcopy, and it came back with HPV positive and having SIN2. And I was told to essentially come back in 6 months or a year to have it tested again. Now, at that time, I reached out to a naturopathic doctor. So I will add into all of this, I have a very high mistrust for our medical system. Again, this is personal belief. I think there's this huge big pharma agenda that is keeping everybody sick and feeding them products, pills, because that's how they make their money. And our medical system is not geared towards making people actually healthy. It's about creating customers. And so I have a very big distrust in our medical system, which has made it quite a challenge to navigate all of this for me. So when I reached out to a naturopathic doctor, it was really nice to have that appointment. It was my first experience with the naturopath. Now, she was what I would consider more of a GP of naturopath and traditional Chinese medicine. I can't remember exactly her title, but she was more of a GP. Now, it echoed my experience with midwives and being able to have a really thoughtful level of care that didn't feel rushed. I was able to ask all of the questions I wanted to ask and really go in depth with things, which was very helpful because I was not able to get that with, at the time, not having a family doctor. And then the colposcopy clinic was okay answering some questions, but I felt like they were very presumptive and just assume that I'm going to do exactly what they tell me to do. And I really didn't like that energy there. So with the naturopath, I had a great experience chatting with her. She helped me get ready for my colposcopy because I actually saw her right before I had the colposcopy because I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it or not. She prescribed a bunch of different supplements, mentioned an escharotic treatment, but recommended the LEEP procedure for precision. So I went ahead, I followed that. And I would say at this time, I was obviously beginning to take it more seriously, but I really didn't understand the depth of where I was and how big of a thing this is for me. And it kind of had this assumption that I would just take these few prescribed supplements for a full bottle and they're going to do what they need to do, and we can just continue on and keep an eye on things and everything will be all good in 6 months, which was not the case. And so time kind of went on. I put this on the back burner. And then through getting all of these things in the mail about Pap tests and needing to be on top of my screening, that I decided I needed to actually take charge of this a little bit more. I still wasn't going full blown with it, but I was starting to be a little bit more responsible. So I did my follow-up Pap test. I actually got a family doctor, it's really nice to, or I should say it's relieving to be able to have that to fall back on. But again, I don't trust our medical establishment, and I believe through modern medicine and the family doctor that I have that they are trained in a very specific way. And they don't necessarily know about the alternatives because they haven't been trained in that way. So they're going to prescribe me what they know and sure that may be helpful, but it doesn't necessarily align with me. But I went to her for my Pap test, and it was an irregular Pap again. So this was in 2024. Now, speed up to early 2025, I went back for my second colposcopy. Again, HP positive, having SIN2, abnormal cells on the anterior of the cervix, so the front of the cervix, not on the interior. Now, that process, and this could be the deepening of my work and being connected with my body, but like my cervix felt so angry after doing that. Like it felt hot and not good. And so I really didn't like doing that to my cervix and like just pulling these pieces off of it. And part of me worries about what kind of damage that can do, although I do know it's important. It is important to stay on top of these things. That's part of what goes in my mindset is like continuing to tear these pieces off of my cervix. Like what kind of damage is that in itself going to do? And so because this was my second colposcopy with SIN2, I was recommended to do a LEEP procedure about a month later. It came up very quickly. I thought I would have to wait a little bit longer. And my thought process when I went into the LEEP procedure is that I was full of fear as a mom for my family. I was fearful that this would turn into cervical cancer and that I was like one step away from that happening. And as I sat in the gown in the hospital waiting for my LEEP procedure, I had so many emotions rushing through me, and I began to really research things to an extent that I hadn't up until that. No, I absolutely should have, but this is where we were. And as I was sitting in that chair with this gown, these other women around me, I realized that there are 3 levels of sin, and then it can go on to other things. Where in my mind, I had thought that I was essentially at SIN 3. I thought SIN 2 was kind of the top, and then bam, it's going to be cervical cancer. And it just hit me while I was going through this information and sitting there that this was a decision based in fear. And we've decided as a family, we do not make decisions based in fear. We take stock of everything, choose wisely what is the best term of action. I don't know if that's the right way of saying that, but take course of action. That's how you say it. We take the best course of action that is right for us while feeling grounded in our body. Now we can feel like hesitant or a bit fearful of what's going to happen, but the decision itself is not based in fear. And so I got dressed and I walked out. And they had no idea what was going on. I don't know if they've ever dealt with that before, but I could not do it. I'm not saying that I won't ever do the LEEP procedure, but at that moment, I could not do it. It was not right for me. So I rushed out. I was bawling. I had my mom watch the kids, and she had to do all this stuff to come and watch them. And I'm crying, saying I'm sorry that she had to come out and do this when I didn't even do the procedure. And before talking with her, I was crying to Matt, and he was so supportive, thankfully, and just, we will do whatever we need to do to deal with this. And so that moment in the end of April in 2025 is where shit got real, and I am buckling the fuck down on how to treat my cervical dysplasia and my SIN too. So I've made some changes. It was over a few months. I shifted my eating, really eating a lot more yams and greens. I started taking methylfolate, adding that onto my supplements. I started making tea blends. I tried vaginal steaming a few times, which I did enjoy. I haven't been consistent on that. Same thing with castor oil packs and meditations. I dabbled in it. It's not something I've necessarily stayed consistent with. I made it an intention for all my practices that I'm doing over this past year. I have been doing a lot of work to get certified in Jade Egg for sacred sexuality. And so I have done over 75 practices, and I geared them towards bringing my cervix into harmony and filling it with health and vitality. I was finally able to get in to see a naturopath in September, so a few months later. And this was a naturopath who is specialized, I should say, in women's health. The other naturopath I had seen before was amazing. I'm really happy I saw her and had that experience with her. But I wanted someone who had a lot of experience specifically with what I was dealing with. So there wasn't as much trial and error with someone who was kind of discovering things while we went along. I want someone who knew what they were doing, would give me a plan, and we would move through that plan and bring my body into harmony, because I truly believe our bodies have an incredible capacity to heal and harmonize. And so I am doing absolutely everything I can to support my body to heal this. So after seeing this naturopath at the end of September, I was given kind of a starting protocol. This included lymphatic drainage, so tying those cysts back in. I just intuitively know that there's something going on with lymphatic drainage in the armpit area. Now, I haven't worn bras for a few years. That's one of the best things that came from COVID is I stopped wearing bras and don't give a fuck. So that helps in that area. So I've started with doing, I think it's called the Big Six, every single morning before I go in the shower. And I just feel so much better doing that as well. So I'm doing that. I was also given a liver detox formula to take, Depercept, ACEs, and zinc. So a few other supplements, as well as some pH testing, because one of my colposcopies, they said that something seemed infected and just gave me an antibiotic without even knowing what the infection was and told me to come back. And I didn't like that course of action. I'm not just going to randomly take antibiotics because someone says, hey, this will kind of help, even though we don't know exactly what we are treating. So because of that, we also did some pH testing of the vaginal canal so we could just see what was going on there. Now, I went through doing that. I had a follow-up at the end of October, which was really good. And this was like the double down on getting shit done. Now, I left for Mexico right after getting my protocol from this. So as I was away in Mexico, I maintained being fairly healthy overall, not going crazy on the drinking, although still drinking every day on the beach, and going to the different restaurants while also making healthier choices, making sure to have a ton of greens and vegetables, focusing on protein, not having very much sweets. And when we came back on the November 23rd, the 24th was Matt's birthday, so we celebrated for that. And on the 25th is when I buckled the fuck down. And this is like the big health protocol that I am currently in the middle of. So what I am doing now to support this is I have suppositories. So vitamin A and vitamin C suppositories. It's vitamin A for 6 days, take a day off. Vitamin C for 6 days, take a day off. And I'm rotating with that for 2 months. Now, I was hesitant about the suppositories because I had, amongst my research, amongst the YouTube videos and podcasts that I was searching out, I had heard some women have a really negative experience and just not be able to do suppositories and how messy they were. So I was quite hesitant, especially because I chose to order the full 2 months at once to cut down on the like $30+ of shipping. But thankfully, they are pharmaceutical grade. They were shipped from more of a natural pharmacy in, I believe, Toronto, Ontario. They shipped super fast. They were very helpful. And they're not in capsules like I had in my mind with kind of the messiness. I had envisioned capsules with herbs in them. But these are more of what to me feels like almost a coconut oil base. I don't know if that's actually what it is, but it's white and it's firm and maybe 1.5 inches or so long in kind of a point at one end. And that's what I've been doing for suppositories. So I have been doing that. And yes, I am wearing underwear while I use the suppositories because there is more discharge than there would normally be. Not to the point that I feel like I need to have panty liners all the time, but I'm not used to wearing underwear. I also have kind of stopped with that just for my comfort, for my lymphatic drainage, to be connected with my body. And so that is like, I don't really like having to wear underwear all the time. But it is what it is. And so that's for 2 months. I'm a month into those now. I have had an increase with my methylfolate. That's a big one. Curcumin, I've been taking that all along from the very beginning. L-Opti zinc with copper, I've been having that. Making sure to have a B complex, because methylfolate can decrease your vitamin B store. So it's really important to take a B complex when you are taking methylfolate, especially for how much I am taking. And I am also taking some floral. So Lomatium dissectum, it is a tincture. It is fucking terrible. It is the most disgusting thing. I swear by oil of oregano. It's been a godsend for us for whenever we are sick. I very rarely get sick because I take oil of oregano religiously. Now that's disgusting in itself, but it doesn't even compare to the Lomatium dissectum. And because it is that tincture, it has that alcohol base to it, and it is so bad. I had been taking a turkey tail tincture before, and switching to this, it's a whole other level. It's utterly disgusting, but I'm just trusting it is doing what it needs to do. So I am taking that for about 2 months as well. Now, on top of this, I am doing the AIP diet. So the anti-inflammatory protocol diet. My naturopath had recommended that I do the modified version of AIP. But just the kind of person I am, like when I go hard, I go all in, dive off the deep end, let's get this shit done. And I didn't want to do the modified version for 2 months, see that I wasn't making progress and need to go to the full-blown AIP anyway. So let's just cut out that waiting time. I've been doing the full AIP diet, and that has been incredibly hard. That is the hardest part about all of this. It is very, very strict. And if I wasn't in the position that I'm in, I don't know if I would be doing it. But because this has been something that has been going on for roughly 3 years, and I want this dealt with, I don't want it going on any longer. I want to support my body as best as I can. I know there's inflammation going on. I've also been dealing with bloatiness and constipation and just feeling yuck in my body. So as I did a bunch of research on AIP, I just decided to go for it. And like I said, it's been fucking hard. So hard to not be eating not only no dairy and no wheat or bread or anything like that. The no nightshades has been incredibly hard. Not having tomatoes or paprika or chili spice or potatoes, no seed oils, nothing to do with corn. So no corn syrup, no corn starch. All of that stuff is out. So it has been a challenge. It requires a ton of food prep. Thankfully, I'm someone who does eat fairly natural overall, tend to eat whole foods. I do a lot of home cooking. I make our pizza from scratch every Friday for family pizza movie night, and a whole lot of other things like that. And this takes it to a whole other level with the amount of food prep I have to do. I can barely eat anything if we leave the house. So I am mindful to just, if we're going somewhere for dinner, like I'm having salad with oil and vinegar with chicken. That's just, I know that's what's going to happen. I might eat something ahead of time. And I have 2 recipes that are amazing for these snack balls that I love, because I love my little snack balls. Except the ones I used to eat had a bunch of seeds and peanut butter in it, which I also can't have right now. So those have been a godsend for me, being able to have that. And I have enjoyed the shift in how I eat, because no eggs is also a part of it. So it's completely shifted breakfast for me, but it's getting me to eat way more greens. And within a week, I'll say by a week and a half, my bloating was gone. My tiredness was gone. I had so much more energy, and I just began to feel good in my body. So I'm very happy, although it has been a big challenge, especially doing this over Christmas, to do this, but I think it's so worth it. And I feel like if I can do this through the holidays when there is so much temptation, like I can do anything. So I'm sticking with it. I'm over a month into that. I actually believe I am 5 weeks today. So that's awesome. Today or tomorrow I hit 5 weeks. And I am also prioritizing exercise. So I used to be very active leading up to having kids. I was doing Zumba multiple times a week. I was going to the gym 3 times a week. We were hiking. We were doing tons of things. I had run 2 different Tough Mudders, some other obstacle course races. I was very physically fit, although partying with a bunch of drugs and alcohol. So as fit as you could be with that. And I lost that with having kids. Now I've dabbled, played around with yoga and Zumba since, but never really stayed consistent with anything. So part of this is I've committed to get that movement, get the stagnancy to move through my body, because that's what a lot of this is with traditional Chinese medicine, with the cis especially, is there's stagnancy in the body, there's dampness. So how can I move it? And that is with moving my body and the lymphatic drainage. And again, it feels so good. It feels like this is the last piece of the reclamation of myself since becoming a mom. I reclaimed my sexuality. I reclaimed this new version of this woman who I am, this multifaceted woman. And now I've reclaimed my health and my body in this whole other level. And that's the thing throughout all of this. I'm using it as an excuse to get in the best health of my life. Because if I can eat very clean, support my health with supplements, exercise regularly, and not have the alcohol and drugs as a part of it, I am going to feel so healthy and so strong and be able to lead that example for my kids. And so for me, that is that silver lining throughout all of this. So that is where I am currently at. I meet with my naturopath in a few days for a checkup, and I will be scheduling my next pap test in about a month. I am nervous about it. I'm not going to lie. I'm very worried that I'm going to have to go and get another colposcopy, and I'm trying not to be. I'm working through with different practices for that because I know the worrying doesn't help, and just really anchoring in positive health and vitality, using Reiki, using my different Taoist practices from Jade Egg to just really love on my cervix. Throughout this process, I've gotten so much more connected with my cervix and with my body, knowing, oh, there's something going on here, something feels kind of off. That's one other thing that I'll add with, especially this last month and these suppositories, is that it was recommended to not have penetrative sex. And for me, obviously, with what I do, my sexuality is a big part of me. And so that has been a challenge, navigating that, and also one that I welcome because it just deepens my embodiment in this work even more. And so for me to be able to navigate these health challenges with my husband, to get creative about our intimacy in ways that doesn't include that, I'm really able to help others move through those sorts of challenges even better. And so that's where we are. I am hoping that next time I'm here recording part 2, I get to celebrate that I have had a clear pap. I am visualizing that I am on the phone with the woman at the colposcopy clinic and telling her, see, I didn't need to get the LEEP procedure. See, alternatives work. And I'm really anchoring that in and working on weaving in some more meditations to, again, just really send that love and that health and vitality and Reiki energy to bring my cervix into harmony, because there is so much health around the cervix. It's just that anterior part. And so rather than focusing on that, I'm really shifting my focus to bringing it all within harmony. There's so much health already there. Let's use that healthy tissue to help support the dysplasia tissue. So thank you for listening. I really hope this helps you. If you're on your own HPV cervical dysplasia journey, I know there is a ton of information out there. It can feel very overwhelming. It can feel very scary. Like I said, there's a lot of stigma and shame that can be attached to all of this as well. And so I am an open book. If you have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can send me a DM on Instagram at Janine.McKinnon. It'll be linked in the show notes, or send me an email, info@JanineMcKinnon.com. That is it for now. I will be back next Tuesday with some more regular programming and some sexy content for you. And I guess I will see you next year. Bye for now.